Hey friends, welcome to another exciting edition of The Sky's the Limit with me, Duke Skytalker. Well, after making my last video, I was faced with a bit of creator's block. Now for me, it's always a matter of too much to talk about and needing to get more focused on a particular topic. So I asked for suggestions for a video topic and was given a great idea by a friend who asked if I would make a video about something that I have done in the past that very few people outside of my chosen industry even know about or understand. Being a radio producer/engineer. In radio, we don't commonly refer to the position of producer as simply engineer, as that title goes to the incredibly smart guys who keep the radio signals going. From the wiring in the studios to the signals emanating from the towers, a radio station cannot operate without a true engineer. In fact, it could be said that the position I will describe in this video, that of producer, is almost on the completely opposite end of the importance spectrum in a radio station setting. Now that's not to say that producers aren't important, because they are. Generally, to avoid confusion between the two, we do sometimes refer to the producer as a studio engineer in the biz. In short, producers run the broadcasts. Another title for this position is director, as he or she determines the program's presentation direction. In some cases, especially in the larger radio markets, producers are responsible for almost all facets of a show, including guests and some topics. But the basic job of a producer is to make sure everything on the air runs as scheduled and is done so to maintain the feel or flow of the program. Producers are also responsible for making sure external programming segues are met on time, like local or network newscasts or special programming that's coming in from a secondary source. Producers are given a daily programming log that tells them where commercial elements and program benchmarks are to be executed, so it's not a fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants sort of thing. But there is a bit of feel needed, as it is an art form. Ultimately, how a show sounds on the air during broadcast is the sole responsibility of the producer. One mistake and everyone hears it. You see, the host can make mistakes that might get past most listeners, but if the producer understands the desired sound and flow of the program, and more importantly, has done his or her job correctly, and has been consistent enough to train the listener on what they should hear, then if he or she screws up, everyone knows it. There are different levels of producer as well. Some are program producers. They develop a show concept or bring their creativity to an existing show concept and do the work of developing the sound and flow of the program. For instance, when I helped kick off a local talk show here on Guam, I was hired to be that guy. The guy that took an existing programming clock and concept and built the sound and segue elements to all of that to develop the sound and flow of the show. This included the show openers and closes, the beds that played before and after commercial breaks, sound effects, and more. It was my job to determine where an element was needed in the schedule, what element should go there, and where that element should be stored for execution. Now, I've also produced live sports programs where all the programming elements were developed for someone else to execute while I was on the other end doing the sports announcing. There are also producers who are basically just control board operators, such as I described previously. In this case, they're given a schedule of what and when elements are to be aired and make sure those elements get aired at the correct times. This position also requires a feel for the flow of a program, but the responsibility of developing that show's sound is not theirs. Now, before we go on to talk about the equipment a producer uses, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor for today's video, Island Color and Copy in Tamuning. Island Color and Copy can handle any printing job you have, big or small. From huge posters to tiny business cards, Island Color and Copy can design and print anything you want. Awarded Pika's Best 2020 Graphic Designer Company and winner of the 2020 U.S. Small Business Administration's Small Business Person of the Year Award, Island Color and Copy, located in Tamuning near Bank Pacific. Give them a call at 648-2679. Now, we've talked about what a producer does, so let's talk about the equipment that a producer uses. In my opinion, there are really two tiers of equipment importance, primary and secondary. Primary equipment includes a control board, a computer, and a microphone, in that specific order. Of secondary but still crucial importance are the peripheral and secondary sound sources like cart machines, CD players, mini disc players, DAT and cassette tape decks, and computers. It should be noted that computers have now taken the place of many of these secondary sources, with everything now saved on a hard drive to be accessed by the playback software. First on my list of primary equipment is the control board, or mixer. Freedictionary.com defines a control board as, quote, an electrical device consisting of a flat insulated surface that contains switches and dials and meters for controlling other electrical devices, end quote. In essence, this piece of equipment takes the sounds that come from external sources and allows the producer to execute them at the appropriate times and volumes to mix them, thus creating the sound and flow of the show. This is really the most intensive and important part of the producer's job in many cases, and one has to really be on point with the timing. Nowadays, the computer is the next most important piece of equipment because in today's high-tech world, the computer has all the programming elements stored on the hard drive to be accessed at the appropriate time through the playback software. And of course, all of these elements must be initiated by, you guessed it, the producer. And unless you have some serious backup, your show will not go on without a computer these days. Third on my list, but maybe first on some others, is the microphone. I grew up in a very large radio market, and for years I had never even heard of or about producers and certainly never heard from one. It just wasn't done. In some instances, one of the hosts would also be the producer, but that's a different thing, and those folks never really pointed that out. As a rule, you never hear producers on the air in large and medium-sized markets, while small markets need to utilize the additional talent. Now that we've covered the primary equipment, let's talk a bit about secondary equipment, which is comprised of anything that wasn't listed in the first set. Peripheral audio devices like CD players, tape players, additional computers, and other devices fit into this category. I call them secondary because even if they go out, you can still run a show. It just won't be as good as it could be. And again, computers now take the place of most peripheral devices, which is good and bad all at the same time. For example, back in the day, if we had music and commercials on two formats inside the control room, let's say cart and CD, well, if one of those devices or mediums were to fail, you still have another option to play the elements. These days, if everything's on the computer and it goes down, the result is the highest sin in radio: dead air. Phones also count as secondary equipment because not all shows use them. For talk radio, phones are a must. And in larger markets, the producer has to also learn how to use the 7-second delay machine that's used for screening calls, equipment I have never used up to today. So there you have it, the basics on being a radio producer/engineer. In summary, the producer must know how to play what he or she wants played at the appropriate time from the appropriate source while monitoring 2 or more other sources for their readiness of presentation and remaining flexible enough to stage and screen telephone calls, manage the host and guests, take out the garbage, and make coffee too. Sounds easy enough, yeah? Okay, well, that's it for this video. I hope I was able to help you learn a little bit of inside stuff about being a radio producer. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I also hope to see more suggestions for future videos. I don't know everything, but I can talk about almost anything. Be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you can watch more of my groovy videos. Everyone says to hit the bell so you'll get notifications when I post a new video, but if you like me, you'll notice. And if you'd like to advertise on the videos, just comment below or PM me on Facebook. Be sure to check me out on Facebook and Twitter for daily Guam weather forecasts and updates. Also, if you want to financially support my video ventures, stop by my Patreon page and subscribe. But in all honesty, I'd like to get a few more videos under my belt before I start asking for money. That wraps up this edition of The Sky's the Limit with Duke Sky Talker. Thanks for watching, be cool, and stay safe out there.